The Panama City area in Bay County is familiar to vacationers all throughout the United States as a prime beach destination because it's home to beautiful white sand beaches and the emerald green waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Matter of fact, the good folks in Bay County call them the world's most beautiful beaches, and they're not far off the mark. For all the beauty of the Gulf Coast, there's an equally exciting history here, or at least I think so. I decided to take a ride down Beck Avenue to St. Andrews, a historic neighborhood in Panama City which was once a completely separate town. St. Andrews was formally incorporated as a town in 1908 while the area was still part of Washington County, and after the creation of Bay County, the town was eventually annexed into Panama City. The area of St. Andrews was once home to Native Americans living along the Gulf Coast, and archaeological evidence of their residence here has been frequently found. In the early 1800s, as Florida was being increasingly settled by Europeans, St. Andrews was home to very few year-round residents, being by and large a known summer destination for folks seeking the health of the salt air and water. Here we see the beautifully maintained St. Andrew's Church, still home to an active congregation to this day. Over in Oaks by the Bay Park, we see several remnants of the old community here, including a beautifully sculpted old fountain, which you'll see here, called the Lion Fountain, which once rested in front of an old St. Andrew's home and was made somewhere around the 1910s. There's a large oak tree in the middle of the park grounds, dubbed the Century, and estimated to be somewhere around 250 years old or thereabouts. There's also this really cool tree which was damaged in the hurricane that shall not be named, and has since been carved full of really neat oceanfront designs. According to the official website of Historic St. Andrews, the town was strategic to the Confederate war effort in the 1860s as a salt supplier. This made it a conspicuous target, and as with many of the important ports throughout Florida, it was soon raided and put out of service by victorious Union forces. Matter of fact, in Oaks by the Bay Park, there's an old salt kettle from those days on display, exemplifying the history of the town in salt production. It was as simple as filling the kettle with salt water from the bay and allowing it to evaporate in the hot Florida sun, leaving the bottom of the kettle full of salt. Now, through the years, there were attempts to cause a real estate boom here, which never really materialized, but the sleepy port town was nevertheless a pleasant place to live for the families who settled here. In 1927, as its neighbor to the east, Panama City, continued to expand at a more exponential rate, St. Andrews and 3 other small communities were annexed into the larger Panama City area, and during World War II, the port of Panama City, including St. Andrews, was instrumental in shipbuilding for the Allied war effort. Now, in October of 2018, the hurricane that shall not be named struck the somewhat unsuspecting Panhandle and devastated Bay County in particular. As you've been able to see, there's a lot of rebuilding going on nearly 2 years later. There are also some, sadly, vacant lots. But because I know how resilient we Panhandle folks are, I have no doubt that it's going to be its old self once again. It's a great spot to get a feel for what we call old Florida. When you walk along the streets and take a look at the historic buildings and walk through the park and down to the edge of St. Andrews Bay, you hear the water lapping up against the beach and you smell the salty air, you really get a feel for a bygone way of life. There are several great shops and businesses to visit here, as well as some mighty good eating. And I think the folks around here are particularly excited about the imminent reopening of Uncle Ernie's Seafood. If you're ever down this way, I highly recommend taking a little time and swinging down Beck Avenue and checking St. Andrews out. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.